Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Mukesh Pareek, and I welcome you all to my YouTube channel. And today I'm present with a small video on S.T. Coleridge as a poet. As this is a live stream, so I will be conversing with some of my students in between. And as you all know that before I start, I would like to request you to kindly subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon. Now, let us begin with S.T. Coleridge. As is the fashion trend, that the teacher mostly, when they talk about any writer, they just talk about his birth. So he was born in 1772 and he died in 1834. Why Coleridge is famous? Why still that popularity is there? The first reason is that somewhere S.T. Coleridge even has exceeded than his contemporary and his friend William Wordsworth. The reason is that it is considered that S.T. Coleridge was more philosophical in his attempt of poems, and he contributed as a prose writer also, and he established himself, or he established his reputation as a critic also by writing the book Biographia Literaria. So in this small class, I would like to talk about certain important things. First of all, when he was a child, he won a brown gold medal in his college, and he wrote a small poem on slave trade. He was against slave trade. So students, you should be aware that we had a question in net. There is a term, an anti-abolitionism. Abolition means to say to remove something, and S.T. Coleridge's name is also associated with those writers or say activists who do something against slavery or slave trade. So as you know that when he was a child in school, he won a medal for writing against slave trade. Then he was not from a very rich family. His father was a vicar. Vicar means a kind of priest, but then he was admitted school after school in different schools because of the transfer of his father, I think. And then he also studied in the charity school Christ's Hospital, where Charles Lamb was also a student. And one day something happened, and he admitted himself because there was a lot much debts on him. वो कर्जदार हो गया था, और एस.टी. कॉलेज के बारे में कहा जाता है कि वो शरीर से भी काफी कमजोर थे, और उनको डिसेंट्री की वजह से एक बार उन्होंने ओपियम और अल्कोहल का जो मिक्सचर है, डॉक्टर ने उनको सजेस्ट किया, तो वो उनको धीरे धीरे फिर इसकी आदत पड़ गई, जिसको मैंने अपने पिछले वीडियो में बताया था कि उसको लॉर्डेनम बोला जाता है। तो एक बार क्या हुआ कि वो अपने कर्जे से बचने के लिए उन्होंने किंग्स लाइट ड्रैगून नाम की टुकड़ी में अपना झूठा नाम बता करके और उसमें शामिल हो गए। उन्होंने जो अपना नाम रखा, दैट कैन ऑल्सो बी आस्क्ड एज अ क्वेश्चन, सिलास टॉमकिन कॉम्बरबैश, ये उन्होंने अपना नाम रखा, सिलास टॉमकिन कॉम्बरबैश, COMBERBACHE। तो ये इंपॉर्टेंट है। तो इसके अलावा उन्होंने मोनोडी ऑन द डेथ ऑफ चैटरटन लिखी। चैटरटन एक यंग पोएट था, 18 साल का, और कहते हैं कि वो ही ऑल टुगेदर बिकेम वेरी फेमस इन इंग्लैंड, और उसको बाद में जब उसको गलियों में ऐसे ही भूखा और मेरे ख्याल से डेड पाया गया, और काफी बड़े बड़े राइटर्स ने, विलियम वर्ड्सवर्थ ने, बाद में एस.टी. कॉलेरिज ने भी उनके ऊपर काफी लिखा। तो मोनोडी का मतलब होता है एक एलिजी, तो दिस कैन बी आस्क्ड एज अ क्वेश्चन। मोनोडी ऑन द डेथ ऑफ चैटरटन भी उन्होंने लिखी है। उसके बाद उनकी इंपॉर्टेंट, मैं बीच बीच में आई विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट हिज इंपॉर्टेंट वर्क्स, मैं दो बार तीन बार बोलूंगा, सो दैट यू पीपल कैन राइट, एंड आई विल बी जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट व्हाई एस.टी. कॉलेरिज इज फेमस। एक पोएम उन्होंने लिखी थी, द फॉल ऑफ रॉबस्पायर, ROBESPIERRE, जो उन्होंने अपने फ्रेंड रॉबर्ट सदे के साथ कोलैबोरेट किया था इस पोएम के अंदर। रॉबर्ट सदे का नाम इसके साथ में लिंक किया जाता है। वी एसोसिएट रॉबर्ट सदे, रॉबर्ट सदे वाज पोएट लॉरेट, so obviously he belonged to a kind of class, and this was this our S.T. College was, but they had similar ideas, and because of the kind of revolutionary spirit, it was present in the air by that time. जॉर्ज थर्ड का ज़माना था, और अमेरिकन रेवोल्यूशन, फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन एंड देयर आइडियल्स वर वेरी मच इन द एयर. तो रॉबर्ट सदे ने और एस टी कॉलरिज ने मिलकर के और एक पेंटिसोक्रेसी नाम का एक यूटोपियन आइडिया निकाला कि वो अमेरिका में जाएंगे, और वहाँ पे उन्होंने बाकायदा स्टार्ट किया भी सस्क्विहेना नाम की जगह के ऊपर. उन्होंने पेनिसिल्वेनिया में एक जगह पर गए और वहाँ पे उन्होंने इक्वल अर्निंग, इक्वल शेयरिंग काइंड ऑफ यूटोपियन सोसाइटी एस्टैब्लिश की. और वो आइडियल ज़्यादा दिनों तक टिक नहीं पाया, और दैट प्रोजेक्ट फेल्ड actually. Or but your question, they can ask you in exam that what is pentisocracy and who out of these writers were associated. तो ये मैंने आपको बता दिया. It was a utopian idea which failed actually. Then उनकी लाइफ में और भी changes आए, and because it did not have, okay, as okay, I'll keep myself in English. As you all know that, as I just had said, that this writer was writing in the period when the ideals of French Revolution and American Revolution was very much in the air. As I told you that he was born in 1772, so you can just take an idea of out of his date of birth, that in 1779 and 89, 75 American Revolution erupted, and in 89 French Revolution was there. So England was too much under the influence of all these idealistic ideas. So this writer was also very much politically, religiously in religion, as I told you that his father was a priest. So he was too much attracted towards freedom. One thing I would like to say in this video, that just imagine that whatever his religion must have been, if a person is against slave trade, if a person is more influenced by the French Revolution, it means a person who is more interested in the ideas of equality, fraternity, and liberty, then he must be a kind of person who sees to God in such a manner which is totally unconventional. So you can understand that his ideas were quite revolutionary as per religion is also concerned. And that is the reason that he influenced the American writers. It is considered that, not considered, it is a fact that he influenced the American transcendentalists. Emerson was the first name who came under his influence, and he wrote a book that was I think a kind of Bible for those transcendentalists, published in 1825. And Aids to Reflection was the book where his political, his religious ideas and his musings. Reflection means how you think about your understanding of the world, or the things which are forming your ideas. Who form our ideas? That the kind of politics around us, our religion, our day-to-day life, all these frame our ideas. So I have already talked about all these things, ideals of pentisocracy. And then I would like to talk about that he was in the financial crisis, and then he associated himself with a newspaper, Watchman, and he associated with Watchman for 10 prints. And actually he himself wanted like there must be more subscriptions of this newspaper so that he can earn money, but then he could not continue the Watchman. Actually this Watchman was a kind of say a periodical kind of newspaper. Now I will talk about his volume of poems that is called Poems on Various Subjects. In this, friend of his, Joseph Cottle, he helped him. Now, why this particular collection is important from examination point of view, that Poems on Various Subjects had, as I told you in my video on Charles Lamb, that Charles Lamb is famous as a prose writer, but he wrote in the very beginning 4 sonnets. And these sonnets were, published by Joseph Cottle, and major poems were included. The writer of whose major poems were included was S.T. Coleridge. So we can say that as per publication is concerned, this was his most important publication, which was considered to be a rite of passage. Rite of passage means that that began his himself. It began him as a writer. It was published in 1796. So as you all know that after that in 1798 he collaborated with Wordsworth and started this lyrical ballads. Next important poem before lyrical ballads is the Aeolian harp. Harp is a musical instrument of wires, strings which are played like this, and Aeolian harp. This he addressed to Sarah Flicker, which later, this girl became his wife later on, and they married in Bristol. And friends, I would also like to say that this writer, S.T. Coleridge, is famous for also writing some conversational poems, and it is said that he influenced all the next generation of other writers. For example, there came a question in net exam for Shelley, Julian and Medello, in which there is a conversation between Julian and Medello, and I think Shelley and Byron are conversing in that poem. So it is said that later on in the Restoration period, in the period also, this writer established a kind of genre of conversational poems, and these conversational poems has a in this collection. This is a famous poem, the Aeolian harp, and then this poem was published. This was written in 1795, and I will be reading out all the major poems of conversational poems collection. Aeolian harp was first in 1795. Then Reflections on Having Left a Place of Retirement. This is second poem. This Lime Tree Bowered My Prison in 1797. Actually, it happened that Wordsworth, Charles Lamb, Wordsworth's wife, and all these people used to go on walk, and someone was a bit jealous of him. So one day it happened like one day Sarah threw some hot milk on the feet of S.T. Coleridge, and then he was bedridden for a few days, and there was a lime tree near his window. So again in this poem, again he's reflecting and talking about. So this poem can also be asked in exam. This lime tree bowered my prison. Prison in the sense, actually he was not in a prison. Actually he was bedridden because of that wound he got. And Frost at Midnight is again a very reflecting poem in which he's talking to his wife, and because French attack was imminent by that time, so there are certain political and certain religious fears are torturing this writer. Then Fears in Solitude, again that the same kinds of fear. The poem was published in 1798. The Nightingale, a conversation poem, the same kind of poem. This poem, The Nightingale, a conversation poem. This poem was published in lyrical ballads. Dejection and Ode is also very famous. In this, the writer is talking about his dejected state of melancholic state, and one poem in this collection is To William Wordsworth, that published in 1807 later on. So what I'm saying that these poems were written in different times, but today they are famous. So these are the poems, and now I'm talking about his most important poem, Kubla Khan. And I would like to give you a brief idea that as recently I told you that he was in the habit of he got addicted to taking opium with alcohol, that is called laudanum kind of mixture, because he was suffering from certain aches in his body, and then he was on this dose as the doctor prescribed this dose. So one day he was in a village, Porlock, and he was reading a book, Purchas His Pilgrimage. It was written in 1630. It was written by Samuel Purchas, and it was written on the Mongolian attacks, in which there was a reference of Kubla Khan and others. So he was reading in that book, and under the torpor of, or the say, intoxication of this laudanum, opium, he fell asleep, and then when he woke up, he started writing, whatever was in his mind, and it became, a poem, Kubla Khan, in which there is an Oriental or Eastern imagery, in which the writer is talking about different images, which are quite, images which are, associated with hallucination and, a kind of supernaturalism. But when that person came from Porlock village and knocked at the door, and the writer, when he got engaged with that person, and that man, when he went away, he came back to his writing table and started writing, but he forgot the poem. So the poem was incomplete, and today the subtitle of that poem is Kubla Khan, a fragment. So this is the whole story of how Kubla Khan came into being. Then Ancient Mariner is also one of his famous poems, which was the first poem in the collection Lyrical Ballads. And I would like to read that paragraph, which Wordsworth and Coleridge said that when they wrote lyrical ballads, they decided, like, who will write what kind of poetry. So they wrote that in the one, the incidents and agents were to be in part at least supernatural, and the excellence aimed at was to consist in the interesting of the affections by the dramatic truth of such emotions as would naturally accompany such situations, supposing them real. And real in this sense, they have been to every human being who, from whatever source of delusion, has at many times, any time, believed himself under supernatural agency. Now, why I've read this? Because for S.T. Coleridge, delusion, or the state of delusion in his mind, or say when you are under certain conditions, when you feel that supernatural deities are with you, or certain delusions are with you, and we always feel that we are away from. Even I feel that sometimes whenever I'm at totally free and I'm not doing anything, I keep looking in blank, and I feel that things are coming towards me, and the things have enlarged, get got enlarged in size. So don't laugh at me. I really feel at times, and any person who is a thinking being, might feel these kind of mental conditions at times. So he says that he took this Ancient Mariner in this sense. As you all know that I'm not talking much about Ancient Mariner in this video. Ancient Mariner is a ballad in which the writer talks about a mariner who is old, and how he got entangled in the sea, and then how he's saved. There are 200 mariners, and then he kills an albatross, who came for food, to them, and then how he's guilty conscious, and with this guilt ridden, that person is saved by some supernatural agency. But this is not the message of the poem. The message of the poem is, it revolves around the killing of the albatross, and I think it has a connection with environmental concerns. The poem has to do with environmental concerns, and the most famous line of this poem is, he prayeth best who loveth best all things both great and small, for the dear God who loveth us he made and loveth all. So you can understand the message of Ancient Mariner. Then comes, the Gothic work, Christabel, which is written in two parts, which it has a mastery of musical rhythm, language, and where he talks about a girl who is innocent. He goes outside, is her castle in the pitch dark of a night where moon is also shining, but there is cloudy. It is cloudy there, and then there comes, she finds an Oriental beauty, Geraldine. Then she takes that girl to her house, her castle, and then there are certain things happen, and the writer has talked about the willing suspension of disbelief. Friends, I would also like to talk about willing suspension of disbelief in this video. That like we watch horror movies. So the writer, you just imagine that these poems were written. When you read them aloud today, you cannot enjoy them, because we have already watched movies, and we more believe in logic, and we see that whatever is shown to us is not the reality. But just imagine that the writer has created certain scenes in these poems, where through the mastery of his vocabulary and his ability of creating a scene, he has created in front of us those kind of special scenes, which makes us scared. And that scariness is somewhere has an appeal to the inner soul, or the things which are untouched, or say unevolved, or unthought for, which is very much there in the caves of the minds of man. So there is another purpose, behind writing all these things. The writer was very much influenced by the German Gothic literature, plus the German philosophers, and then I will also be talking about uh, Foster Mother's Tale poem, which he included in lyrical ballads. As I told you, the Nightingale also was included in this collection. The Ancient Mariner was one of the poems, and then let me talk about Frost at Midnight. Frost at Midnight is a philosophical poem, and I think I'm planning to make a video on these poems. This video is for simply talking about different works by Coleridge, so that if you read it, if you watch this video again, you can at least, by listening, at least you can tick mark certain questions there. And Fears in Solitude, as I told you, is one of the collections in the conversation poems. And now I would like to talk about his connection with the German. It is said that Coleridge was drawn to Germany for its literary ferment and new learning. Sometimes most of my students are not aware that most of the English writers are not original. It is said that even Renaissance came to Germany first, and then it traveled through France to England. In the same way, it is considered that all the greater ideas, the first are, they come to Germany, and then the writers through Germany are influenced. And the same thing happened that it was a fashion in the Romantic age that all the poets, the writers used to go to grand tour, and Germany was the favorite destination. So it is said that he took some, I think, course also in German university in Göttingen, Gottingen, and there he came under the exposure of the earlier Germanic languages and literature, and which gave him a boost or kind of interest towards German Romanticism. And he wrote a collection of essays on his own times, published in 1850 after his death. And in this volume, he has talked about all these things. And the next important other works of prose work was Aids to Reflection. So these are the most important works written by S.T. Coleridge. But at the end of this video lecture, I would also like to inform you that this writer was a keen lecturer on Bible, and he used to earn by lecturing on Shakespeare also. It is said that later writers learned a lot much how the kind of organic unity present in Shakespeare is the major idea given by Coleridge. Organic in the sense that he says that ideas and scenes and character and their language, their habits are so much organically involved in Shakespeare. This thing was contributed in Shakespearean criticism by S.T. Coleridge. First thing. Second thing, that as I told you, that he was a lecturer on Bible. This question has appeared in exam. And apart from that, I would like to inform you that S.T. Coleridge is more philosophical, and he has also contributed two terms: primary imagination and secondary imagination. I'm going to make another separate small video on the difference between primary imagination and secondary imagination. But because you are waiting right now, I should tell you about this also, that he says that primary imagination is almost present in everybody, where through memory we can recollect the things, and we can create new things. But these things are already seen by us. But secondary imagination is peculiar to poets only. There they can create something organically which they have not seen either. So this can be understood. Just wait for another video. And next thing I would like to inform you about his idea of genius, that he has written that there is a concept of genius. Like in my earlier video when I was talking about William Hazlitt, I forgot to talk about the kind of term he used, gusto. I'm talking about Hazlitt. Hazlitt in his essay given us a word, gusto, which he has said that it is a kind of passion in a writer, with which he writes. The passion of a writer through which he can create things easily is called gusto. In the same manner, S.T. Coleridge has given us a work word genius. And about this word he has talked about this word he has talked in his book, Biographia Literaria. And rest of the things I'll be touching upon this writer. But one more thing I would like to inform you that why he has he has been famous for writing poetry as well as prose. And his poetry is not very tough to understand because of the lack of poetic diction in that, deliberate lack of poetic diction. Plus, he's very smooth while he writes, because this is the writer who says that actually there is no difference between the language of prose and language of poetry. So, friends, with all these ideas of Coleridge, I think in this small video of 26 minutes, if you re-watch it, you can understand that this writer is famous for these many things. S.T. Coleridge, had a son also, and later on, his daughter also wrote, and in Victorian age, and she made John Donne famous. This is also an information with me. Apart from that, I would also like to say that this writer S.T. Coleridge is also famous for creating that something which is very much known but has an element of unknown or strangeness, can make us create things, can make us become poets. So with all these things, I take your leave. Thank you very much. Namaskar.